And then we are ready at the chair's discretion.
So I've got somebody who works here and then support staff. Is Amy Hendrickson. So sometimes when I start gaming, I'm like in a hurry and I don't click and I'm like, and then Amy will go, Amy, I think I was meant to send this to you. And I'm like, oh, you're right, I did.
She has Amanda and I have Amanda. She needs mine once in a while out of the cards. And she's a social worker, so some.
Okay. Minutes. Did you move?
I will.
I second. Whatever. You got the last one. We have a motion to approve the minutes in a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Public comment, I don't see any public here. Internal relocation and finance department. Who's going to speak to that?
I think Ron.
Are those two ladies over there?
Suppose I can.
Huh?
Sounds like you're elected, Ron.
Yeah.
We did have two meetings with both Chris and Penny Tank. Penny Tank was sitting in on them. Chris had his staff come down to the current finance area, do a walkthrough. The big storage area, we had cleared out a lot of stuff to give them a better idea of the space over there. Basically, the space that the UW has now and the space downstairs, they're actually gaining square footage in the downstairs. The big thing is how to make it work out the best. We talked to Chris about, kind of their needs and office space, how much office space they need. And I think the big thing is it's kind of hard to offer up suggestions, not really having any guidance of the financial end of it, what we're available to put into something like that. So at the last meeting, we did kind of talk about that space study needs that's set for this year. And it's kind of a thing of, do we try to get some guidance through that? Or are we going to move ahead and make this move prior to that? And if so, do we have someone come in to look at the space and give us the best idea for a layout and kind of an idea of budget wise? Really not knowing those things, it's kind of hard to, I could offer up Chris an idea for down there, but I don't want to offer him something and find out, well, that's a lot more than what we're looking at spending. So that's why our thought was to bring it up at this meeting to kind of get an idea how you want to proceed with that.
When were you thinking to do the needs study to bring them in?
Well, that's next on the agenda. Do we go ahead and get the ball rolling on that? And
That's on the agenda right there.
Yeah.
Budget wise, and how are we for the study?
Heidi budgeted $100,000.
We budgeted $100,000 for the new space needs study in 2022. Just because we felt like through because the expansion and remodel was tentatively set up to begin in 2024, borrow funds in 2024, because that's when our last debt issue, not other than the highway facility, will be paid off. And so, and with all the changes that are occurring with remote work and those kinds of things, I think we have to redo the study. It just seems to make the most sense, because do we need the expansion or don't, those kinds of things. Through the conversation, the expansion isn't what's expensive. It's the remodels that are the expensive part of that project. So, I don't know what we'll find out through the space needs piece, but I just think that it would be smart to just kind of start from scratch on that. Unfortunately, we had that big urgent situation on the outside exterior of the building that cost a pretty substantial dollar amount. So we weren't able to even begin off that study. And now with the COVID situation and everything kind of changing the way we do business in certain areas, I think we have to start from scratch. I think it just would make the most sense.
I think probably some of the things would be, similar, so it might not be as extensive. I still think it's going to be, but third floor, not a lot of the players have changed up there, so they probably, what was talked about before was fine. And second floor, we have different leadership there, and I think they may have different ideas as to what they want. Plus, they've got a lot more remote work. So a big piece of it might be re-looking at that whole second floor piece. I think that may come back differently than what it did last time around. And, and first floor, what has changed there? I know different places have talked about more touchless environments that are going into remodels nowadays, just in light of this whole pandemic. So that might be a factor in that whole, space needs study to be relooked at. So just a couple thoughts.
Well, I think we need to have a study because otherwise we're just guessing again. So I don't know, anybody have comments on that?
I think if you're going with Jim again, I think he's so honest and so good that he could kind of guide you as to what to do and when to do it, but I don't know if you have to send it out for bids or not.
I think we would resend it out for bids.
I think we'd have to, yes.
And, yes, that, he wasn't really excited, or he didn't really promote the remote work. And now here we are today with that as a discussion piece. So that's a little bit concerning as well, because we tried to talk about that within the study, to say, let's look, what about the possibility of remote work? So I think it is important to get, if they are the ones that come in and win the bid, obviously it probably would be a little bit more, could be more cost effective. But like Mandy said, who knows if you're starting from scratch. I just think it needs to be relooked at.
Yeah, I agree. And we won't know what the bids, we can guess at what they might be.
Right.
We gotta have the bids.
I think the last one was 75,000.
I was thinking upper 80s.
Oh.
I remember it in 87,000-ish range.
I'm sorry, what, Diane?
Oh,
I remember it to be like in the 87,000 range.
yeah, see, that's kind of what I was
Okay,
thinking.
okay. I think that's what's important about bringing a firm like that in, because they would have really good ideas to talk through and layouts and all that. But, and like I said, the remodel piece is what's the most expensive, and that's really probably what we're looking at is more of a remodel.
And I think looking at when that last study was done, I believe even if you were to not do the addition, the remodel alone may still be in that neighborhood with the way prices have gone up on everything. Because that's been quite a few years, that estimate of 15 million.
Right.
So.
And the remodel design might be totally different, or
Yeah.
will be totally different too.
Yeah.
So we don't really have any idea.
And any firm that comes in, I think if you were to eliminate the addition, I think anyone that comes in is going to look at this basement area and say, you've got a lot of space down here that's, not utilized like it should be. I mean, you need your meeting rooms and that, but you could easily add more in the basement. Some of the storage rooms have gotten really empty just because of all the electronic digital stuff now. So I know the basement's not a big thrilling area for some people, but I can't.
Ron, we call it a lower level.
Lower level, correct. A lot of places will look at that and you can't really justify adding square footage on if you have a lot of empty square footage. So no matter who comes in, I think that's going to be, like there was talk the one time about building a new county board down here. I know that wasn't a popular idea, but got to kind of work with what space you have. You don't want to add a lot of additional space to try to keep things good and have all this empty down here.
Well, you'd have to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Study the entire building.
Yeah.
But Heidi, we would have enough money in the budget to do the study.
Yes, we did budget 100,000. So it's just a matter of, putting it out to bid and getting the ball rolling on the project, on that project.
How long did the process take last time?
Boy, months. I get a question for Diane.
Yep.
If we were to put this out to bid and another firm were to win the bid, our previous study, all that information and all that, is that something that can be shared with anyone else?
Yep, we own it. It's our property.
Because that, with all that information already gathered, that might, drop down, how thorough the project would be. Thanks, Diane.
Well, what's the committee's wishes here? What do you think?
Pursue the study, get some ideas.
Because I know originally when talking, was it looking at like April to make the change? Wasn't that brought up at some point? I mean, that obviously.
That was a date that was initially talked about.
Yeah, and realistically, that's.
Is that a motion?
Chris,
Make
you
it
have
into a
anything
motion.
you want to add?
Well, I think the ones, the space in the lower level it's the same footprint and even a little bit more. It's the build out, it's not move-in ready for, the 8 staff and the workspaces that's needed. So the thought that we have is we as our group to go through the expense and to renovate that space, to move, and then to do the study and then find out, oh, well, there might have been a better spot for everybody else, but this is kind of, I mean, there might be musical chairs anyway, but at least we would work together with everybody and collaborate and find out where is that spot. And I just think that would be the most efficient use of
And
the
at
dollars.
last meeting, we kind of talked about that, and I agree. If you make the move now, and then you have the study halfway through the year, and they say, well, this would have been a better option, then you just put money into that.
Yep.
The other thing is when you talk about the remodeling piece, that open space like that, where we are, that Ron and his staff kind of cleaned out, that'll probably be a kind of a drop area for, could be used as a drop area during remodel for departments to relocate to, as a remodel occurred, during that timeframe. Because it's a pretty large space. I mean, obviously we'd have to, set that up, but it is a good possibility that area would be able to be utilized for that piece as well, so.
Because when they do that remodel, it's gonna be a huge displacement of departments. I mean, they could come in and want half of a floor cleared out to work on, and you gotta relocate all those people somewhere.
I will second his motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the remodel.
What's the motion, Richard?
Fred?
Okay.
To approve the remodel or the space?
Just have
The study. Do
Yeah.
the study.
Further study.
Yeah, the study. But I think it's the only way we can go. We gotta figure out what we got.
Can you repeat the motion?
To move forward with the space study?
Yeah, right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we covered number 8 then, right?
Yeah, yep. Took care of both of them.
Okay.
Maintenance updates.
Maintenance updates. Currently kind of working through the comm center, some of the stuff with Carl Arts. We're not too heavily involved in that project, but there's been things that we've been having to help out with. They are now moved into the comm center. And just last week, they started demoing the old comm center to transform that into a meeting room. They're looking at about a month project and that should be all completed. And that being said, at the end of the meeting, I've talked to Carl and Kevin next door and they said it would be fine if anyone wanted to go over and take a look and tour the new comm center. Besides that, currently still working on our HVAC project. Supply chain was kind of an issue with that coming through last year. They're actually scheduled next week, Monday, to come in and basically start hooking up the new controllers. The new controls are all in, but they were kind of working with IT department, getting all the IP addresses straightened out, and IT has been really helpful with that, and they should be ready to start the installation next Monday, getting things plugged in and uploaded and all that. Then I also have the replacement of the Ansel fire suppression system in the IT server room. That right now is roughly halfway complete. They ran into a couple problems of parts that they were supposed to have gotten, and there's been a little delay, but that should wrap up, I'm hoping, in the next week. If all goes well, knock on wood. Besides that, we're just kind of going through our daily stuff. We do have our cleaning group, building services, has been coming in on the weekends. We're doing some waxing on the floors in the jail. They're in pretty rough shape. Kind of a tricky project to do all the scheduling because they're open 24 hours and it's kind of hard to work around the traffic flow in the hallways and all that, but they've done it before and they're getting it figured out. That is pretty much all I got for projects right now. Unless someone's got any questions.
Any questions for Ron? Well,
Besides-
then we're down to relocation of power poles.
All right, good morning. I've got a few things to hand out. I got one little display over on the side table over there. Maybe we can look at it as a group, just kind of look at very generally. I think that's kind of where we need to start with the conversation. If the group could just stand and I'll just show you where we're talking at Lakeview Manor, where the power poles are located, and then we can come back for some more photos and pictures that Christie has and so forth. So
You guys do that.
So located at the Lakeview Manor property, this is all of the land of Lakeview Manor. This dark boundary indicates the boundary of the proposed wetland mitigation bank. And inside of the boundary of where we want to create wetland credits, we have to exempt encumbrances, which are areas that we cannot receive credits for, which includes the gravel road that we have to exclude as acreage for the mitigation bank. We have to exclude the gas line, which is the big high transmission gas line that we cannot create wetland credits over utility easements essentially. And then right now the Waupaca or the snowmobile club crosses the road right here and then basically comes right through these fields. Any trails that are on the mitigation bank are not considered eligible for wetland credits. And so when I met with the Waupaca Trails president on site, what we suggested is he takes the road and then he runs his snowmobile trail down the 66-foot wide road easement. And then we created an easement real lightly hatched right here so that we as a county are not telling snowmobile clubs, you cannot be on this property anymore. It kind of works with them to come down here and then hook back up where they then leave. So The other thing that we're looking at is, for today's discussion, is the overhead power lines that cut through the property as you're coming up Manor Drive, you cross the railroad tracks. I have some more photos for us for this. What I want to do is take those overhead lines, which once did service a bunch of buildings in this area, and move them so they're in the road right away and out of our mitigation bank. So this overhead lines is about 1/2 of an acre of disturbance. 1/2 of an acre of a credit is roughly going to be about $50,000, which is near the cost of moving those power poles. And so it's going to be a wash overall. And so this is like the big picture view of it that gets submitted to the internal review team to verify that all of the numbers are correct, which then produces a calculated square footage of acres. For instance, just that road is roughly 5.9 or 6 acres just for that road to be excluded from the property. There's a detail in here which talks about how many acres the entire site is, but I think it was like 244 acres. So it's a big project and it's still in the scoping planning phase, and we're going to talk about these overhead lines right there.
How much did you lose, or did you already know that you were gonna have to cut things out?
We knew that we were going to have to exclude the road. We knew we were going to have to exclude the gas line. At one of the previous public property committees, we decided to follow the boundary of this property line versus use this field area so that this property isn't tied to the mitigation bank. If the county would choose to sell this separate parcel, which falls within the city of Waupaca's limits along with Lakeview Manor, so that each time we have a discussion, I'm excluding stuff so that when we have a plan together, it's the final plan that doesn't get years down the road and then we have to make a change, which they don't like that. So that's
actually what put some of these together is the city is in the process of putting light poles up Manor Drive to the manor where there's residents now, and that's a dark road. So it only makes sense to do this at the same time we're doing that.
And that's what started this conversation with these, was Jeremy from the city of Waupaca, the administrator, said, hey, this isn't something we're looking, does the county need to be involved? And then that just prompted me to ask the questions to move these overhead lines out of the mitigation bank, so we don't lose a 1/2 acre of credits here. And I'll go more into the conversation.
That just makes good sense anyways. You
Get it. We gotta have lights there and they gotta move, so might as well do it at the same time.
So I've given a few photos to Christy as more talking points. If Christy could just bring up the first one that you have on Manor Drive looking to the north. This is a
So should I turn that light off? Can you see?
yeah, if you could turn the light off, I guess maybe I could. And I have some pictures. I'll send this around here, Fred. That's a photo of that same thing, a little bit zoomed in.
Oh, all right. Hold on. Hey, there you go.
Better.
Look at that switch.
You can see the maze of power lines that are out there, and what I'm looking at discussing this $55,000 with We Energies is moving the power poles out of that mitigation bank site and putting them along Lakeview Manor. What We Energy says is if the county is going to commit to that $55,000, We Energies is then going to say, all right, we've got a committed project out here. We as We Energies are going to, at no cost to the county, update all of the lines off of Lakeview Manor, which is the Gateway House, all of the additional buildings. They're going to upgrade their feed to the now Lakeview Estates or whatever that's called.
That's what they call it, yeah.
So it's kind of like if we start a project, they've committed to it, and then they'll commit more north of Manor Drive and fix all of the maze of lines that are going on at their cost. But they aren't going to fix their stuff unless we commit to fixing our stuff out of our mitigation bank. It's kind of one feeds the other. So that first photo is the maze of lines. And I'll just keep sending photos around of additional pictures. Christie, if you could go to photo number 2. This is the scope of what I'm looking to get moved out of the mitigation. It's some power lines out in the fields. This is part of the power pole relocation. Go to the next photo, please. This is now I'm looking south at the tower. A lot of the photos that you see here of the power lines kind of going everywhere is now what We Energies would fix at their cost if we commit to the stuff out in the field. Next photo.
You were talking putting that stuff underground.
Going underground with all of that, yeah. This is more specific, the poles that are owned by the county, they said, and are sitting in the mitigation bank. One's kind of tipping over. So that gives them a good excuse to upgrade it for our purposes. Then I've got some additional photos I'm gonna send around that are more discussion points. When Ron and I had met and looked at the electrical situation here, we looked at what is the electrical situation feeding the county-owned buildings in there. And that Quonset hut photo that I'm sending around now just kind of shows old poles. One of the electrical lines is got some frays on it and is almost touching that metal building. There's just a lot of upgrades that could be necessary beyond my scope of what I'm looking at. That red shed, the red shed that has electrical lines running to it, the wires are not in the conduit, so it's outside of code. The wires are exposed, kind of just hanging off of the building. Then a question that's gonna pop up with this electrical project, if we so choose to do it, is there's 2 really old brick buildings that are out there that are vacant, and maybe Ron wants
Actually, 3.
three buildings. Ron, if you want to speak to
Yeah,
them a little bit.
That's kind of another part of it. You got these 3 buildings, big brick one next to the red shed. Then just behind it is a small little milk house, or I'm not.
Creamery.
Creamery.
Or crematory, I don't know.
Basically 3 buildings that, what does the county really have a use for? Do you need power? As they're doing this, should the power be eliminated from them? Because is the county gonna still use the buildings? I mean, this is the big one, that big brick building. That is full of just some oddball stuff left over from Lakeview and hundreds of birds. We tried going out there to look last summer to see what really is in there. And it is, you don't even want to go in the building with all the birds. When you get a lot of rain, the basement part floods out, and really, that's another talking point. At some point, do we take a look at those 3 buildings and look at the possibility of just demoing the buildings?
What about the birds?
We're planting trees, right?
They're gonna plant a tree for them, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a can of worms.
Is that red building or the small
Well, I mean,
building?
the red building is a nice garage. What do we use it for? Not really sure. Right now, we use it for overflow as the seasons change, like it comes spring. We move our snow blowers over there just to free up our little tiny storage room.
You need lights in there?
Well, there's a possibility the city might want to rent that again.
And
I would hate to see the
quite a
power
few
go.
times
Yeah.
with Casey's project, he's used it. I gave them a set of keys in case they,
Yep.
as they're
That's
doing
what I'm
work.
saying, you should keep all
That
right,
building-
anything that you want.
That building is definitely worth keeping out there. The Quonset hut, I know Land and Water still uses it. I don't know about Parks. But those other 3 buildings, in my mind, there's absolutely no use for those.
One other photo that's circulating there is some power or some overhead lights that are just illuminating the grass lawn at night to pay for. So we're paying to illuminate the grass lawn at night.
Yeah, so this
Eliminate
is in front of the
those.
Gateway House. And I think this was quite a bit, if you look up in the county boardroom sometime over near where they put the donuts,
Yeah.
that picture of the old Lakeview setup,
Yeah, that's,
right now, there's still these two light posts that basically aren't lighting the road at all, because they're just way back over the lawn. Really, those make no sense, and they're gonna be putting in the light posts coming up Manor Drive. So those two could really be eliminated.
looking at that picture back there that he's talking about, that's an amazing picture and it'll give you a real good idea of
Yeah,
what's going on. up
you
there.
can really tell how many buildings were out there.
Yeah, it was amazing.
But it really is, as you look around the property, it's just a mess of wires going in all sorts of directions.
The gateway may need a light, that'll be
The Gateway, they still have a light in their parking lot. That would obviously have to stay.
adequate. Would that be upgraded if necessary through the?
Well, that comes, I believe, from those two light posts. I think that was tied in, so that would have to be put underground, that wire to the gateway.
But is that what the power company was saying they would?
The power company is gonna move 3 or 4 power poles out of the mitigation bank for $55,476.39, which then we won't need an encumbrance, and we'd be able to sell those acres as for mitigation credits, which would be about a wash. And then they said everything outside of the scope of moving those 4 power poles, they're gonna upgrade everything up to the north and around those buildings and bury new facilities to Lakeview's facilities. They didn't even get into their design plan for all of that because we're just getting started with it. But they wanted to know from us if we would want to move forward with this discussion, and then that will have their engineers go back out and redesign everything to feed the water tower and all of the other stuff that's going on.
Just for comparison, they're gonna do that for, what'd you say, $55,000? With a construction project we got on Main Street right now, and why we got a 1 pole, I didn't tell you the guys that before. 1 pole has to be moved, and they want $65,000 to move the 1, so. If that 50 will take care of that biggest problem, that's a good deal.
I think the big thing is, after going out there and meeting with them with Casey, yeah, it's 50-something thousand dollars, which Casey and then in turn gets back as credits. So it's kind of a wash, but then you're also totally fixing everything else out there underground.
It just goes along with the city gonna do it at the same time,
Mhm.
putting streetlights up Manor Drive. And I do believe, Waupaca Estates is gonna get involved and have some more lights put in their parking lot. And the whole works will be underground, and it's all going together, it's a good deal.
So the next thing I need to take back to the highway committee, which our next highway committee meeting is March 31st. Have the highway committee approve to utilize the transportation funds out of our budget at the highway to move forward with this. And so I would need public properties permission because it's your property, but transportation services fund would be the ones benefiting from the wetlands of this mitigation credits. So they should be responsible for paying to move the power poles. I think the
I'll make a
discussion we
motion to
had.
that.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second.
Yeah. To highway department move forward with the relocation of the power lines.
It just makes sense. It'll clean that whole thing up.
Have to, if we don't, it's gonna fall down and then there's no power running back to that facility that Lakeview Estates, I mean, that's their, We Energies is like, we really need a reason to get in there. Will you start this with us? And we're like, let's do it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I'm sure
My
we'll pass it
thought
too.
is, should I kind of get out there, look at those 3 buildings, take some pictures, bring them back to you next month to kind of get an idea of what we want to do with those buildings that are questionable? Or do we go ahead and run the power back to them again
And gas.
and gas?
We Energies has another division that has gas. They want to know what the future is of the gas too.
You're gonna need gas in that red building, metal building.
It has been used, yeah.
Yeah, there's heat in there.
So then
We
you,
shut it off, like right now, it's it's off. When Waupaca was using it, we turned it on and, I don't know if when you were using it for the highway, if you turned it on.
Didn't use it.
When it's on, then we keep it just really minimal, just,
If for some reason that old brick building needs to be used in the future, we just have to run electricity to it.
yeah, that brick building.
Is that worth,
Tracy, what do you think?
is
Yeah.
it worth the effort?
But even if it does in the future, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying, you don't really need it there now.
Yeah, our crews in hauling it, I don't know where we haul it if there's
I don't know what
asbestos
you
in
use.
there. So
It's
25, 30 apiece.
It's scary. It's almost like dangerous walking in there. You don't feel real safe in that building. And not just because of the birds.
Right.
It's got some structural.
You can keep the birds out if you had to.
Yeah, we've been out there. We had to replace a couple windows already.
So for the brick ones, I don't see any reason to keep them.
There's one white one just behind that brick one, and that is about the footprint of what the table setup here is. And
That would
all
fit in a
that's in
dump
there-
truck.
All that's in there is some old paint cans and,
It could be got maybe landfilled or something.
yeah, and the creamery, that is really nothing in there.
So I think we.
I think if I took some good pictures to give you a better idea.
I would think that we plan, and this is a suggestion, we plan on not running power to the two brick buildings for now. And we'll think about it for a while. And when our construction equipment is out digging out ditches, that might be the time to say our equipment's already mobilized out there, maybe take them down at that point if we have time to think about that
Yeah,
later this year or next year.
I would say you still want electricity to the Quonset hut and the red shed, gas to the red shed. Beyond that, unless you want to dump a lot of money into that brick building to make it useful.
Well, you don't have to do anything with it. We can just
Yeah,
wait and see.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll take it to highway committee then, March 31st.
We got a motion.
We gotta vote on it.
Any further discussion? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, thanks, Kate.
Anybody been on any conferences?
I will be,
It will be.
2 weeks, but this time they built it to public property. Gary Kay and I were at one of these courtroom security things a couple of years ago, and it was some legislative judicial committee. So. I don't
Where
know
are you
why-
going?
I don't know why it was built through public property this time, but anyway.
It isn't that much. anyway.
But it's, yeah, it's the last meeting of our subcommittee from legislative judicial that you were to cancel because there were some changes made and the thing wasn't posted. So we were supposed to, according to the state, we're supposed to get together at least every 2 months. So hopefully we'll be getting together again soon as to what we have to do to not courthouse, but courtroom security.
Yeah.
So. And that's what this is gonna be about.
Just as a comment, all the meetings and conferences we went through over a couple of years with Lakeview Manor, what to do with it, and the bidding we did and trying to sell it, and realtors claiming he get 2 million for it, and we ended up selling it for what, 180,000 or something at that time, which sounded terrible, but just in as of today now, the outfit that bought it at that sale price, which we thought was terrible low, they stuck over $1 million into it, and they've got 26 apartments out there now, and I believe they're full. And they've given us city officials a tour a couple of times, and they made a beautiful, beautiful place out of it. And it's, if it isn't full right now, a couple of weeks ago, he said he only had like 2 apartments left. They're beautiful apartments, and so it turned into a big plus. Plus, it's on the tax roll.
Nice tax base too for the city.
It's yeah, and it's a
Increase your levy
good
limits.
job. I just comment that it's good.
Well, that
You know,
was
all the questions and criticism we got on it, it turned out, and you know, at that time, They were talking $500,000 to tear it down all the way. So now we got $1 million better building and it's on the tax roll, so
No, the city where we go, thanks to public property.
it worked out very fine.
It was a good deal. all
It
around.
turned out right, yeah.
And nothing else? Any meetings anybody been to? Our next meeting is April 8th, Friday, April 8th. Need to adjourn, motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
April 8th and you will be here?
I will not be.
Wow.
Come on,
We're gonna
Joyce.
miss you, Joyce.
I know I could be